Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Middle East Forum's weekly podcast series, Israel Insider. My name is Anaf Kalam, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We are pleased to be joined today by Alex Selsky, who is the senior advisor to the Middle East Forum's Israel Victory Project, joining us to give us a top overview of the current events going on in Israel this week. Mr. Selsky will give us a 15-minute update, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. And as always, if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat function inside of your browser to ask a question. And with that, I will turn the discussion over to Mr. Alex Selsky.
Hello to everyone. Good evening from Jerusalem. That's my first time that I talk to you since the war with Iran, during which I was in reserve service as a briefing officer or spokesman of the Homefront Command. So I would like to start actually from the fact that, the change, the coming back to the routine in Israel is always very quick and, always very kind of, unexpected, but we really back to life, everything, like it was, like the usual life. You can not imagine that you just 1 week and a half ago had a war with Iran and ballistic, rockets fell. And I just today, this morning, I went to one of the places where one of the ballistic rockets fell in one of the cities in the center of Israel. And I just want to tell you that the resilience of Israel is felt very much as a very, very strong, resilient spirit. And the very fact, that we called the flights to bring back those who stuck abroad because the flights were canceled. We called these flights rescue flights. This just shows you about the resilience and the spirit of Israelis, because, usually rescue flights, you call to the flights from war zone to the zone where there is security. And here, the Israelis actually exactly spoke the opposite. So I feel today that the feeling on the streets among people is of power, of some really victorious spirit of, people still, and even in the army, don't believe that we did go on war with Iran, and we did it good. And with all the prices of, very tragic 28 casualties and many people who left homes. But overall feeling is that we are strong. We can fight any enemy. We can win any enemy. And that's a great feeling. But on exactly the opposite, though, after seeing the strength of the Israel Defense Forces on a regional superpower like Iran, to look back with our eyes, under our legs, and to see how we, stuck in the dust of Gaza is very, very disappointing. And the voices of ending the war in Gaza I heard more and more. And all the eyes definitely are up to the negotiations over the hostage deal, which should end the war, and the visit of the Prime Minister in the White House, that in Washington and in the White House, that took place just last night. And we see that there is a very significant, very real process of negotiations. And we see that the meetings between the Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump are very serious, and that's a very, rare, where we saw that they had actually 2 meetings in one evening, one during an evening, a lunch and a dinner, and then immediately after a few hours, another meeting in the Oval Office. And This definitely shows the seriousness of the negotiations and the very involvement of the president and the prime minister. And it also shows how close really they are in managing this situation. And what we hear is that the deal yet will not bring all the hostages. We hear about half of the living ones, meaning 10, and half of the dead ones, meaning 15. So overall 25 out of the 50. And we hear that they speak about a ceasefire of 2 months, and the biggest argument at the moment is regarding where IDF will stay during the ceasefire. Will it withdraw fully or stay? And Israel uh, demands to stay in a corridor called Morak corridor that actually cuts the Rafah from all the rest of the Gaza Strip. It's down the south of the strip, and this is now the major issue. But everybody still understands that even if there is a deal and even if there is a agreement now, it will not end the war, and it will not end the it will not take all the hostages out, not the living ones and not the dead ones, and that's very frustrating. But on the other hand, we hear those who say, listen, we cannot leave until we just kill all the Hamas, until we destroy all the Hamas. Definitely not the military capability. But people are really willing to, to take the hostages out. And again, and we hear the IDF saying, listen, it's very hard to destroy Hamas, especially to destroy the tunnels, which is the major last capability that they have is the tunnels, and you cannot really destroy the tunnels if you still are afraid that you can kill your hostages that are inside. So and this is a huge dilemma that divides many in Israeli society. Everybody wants the hostages back, but many understand that we cannot stop now and leave any way for Hamas to stay and to keep the capabilities. Another important thing is that we hear about the normalization with Syria, even though during the last days, the expectations were lowered, and we understand that the process will take time, that it's not so easy, and we have to see, that the regime is stable, and everybody understand that it should be done gradually, but more and more we speak about it, and the very fact of speaking about it is very significant, and in the long term, also speaking about normalization with Lebanon, and we see that the Lebanese government pushes more and more on the disarmament of Hezbollah, and that's a very significant development. And I think that people are mostly optimistic, and they understand that it's only a matter of time, of years, but it's only a matter of time of normalization with Syria, with Lebanon, with Saudi Arabia, and that gives the whole new understanding of optimism after this very, very long and hard war in Gaza. Um, uh, and when we speak about Israel, we cannot not to speak about politics. We still are in the political crisis of the draft bill of the Haredi ultra-Orthodox population, and we see that they still push, and we see that Likud still, um, kind of tries to to grab and spend time. The end of the summer session is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is very, very little time. And today we heard that, the head of the committee, the chairman of the committee, the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee, Yuli Edelstein, which had to, finish the working on the bill and to present it to the Knesset to vote, he got sick, which buys another few days, which are very significant because 3 weeks is not so much. And more we hear that maybe Netanyahu will, after all, go on elections, of the fast elections. He definitely grew in the polls after the war with Iran and after these meetings with Trump. So I definitely think that he feels that he's on his, peak, and that's the time, to do that. Also, which is important to mention that, we saw today and yesterday a publication about the fact that Netanyahu spoke to Trump and about the possibility to strike again in Iran if they discover that the Iranian nuclear program was not damaged as expected, as Israel wants. So everything is open. So everybody understands here that it can be continuation to this war, and everybody understand that that was not the end. That was maybe only the beginning. And we see the continuation of the fight between the government and the legal advisor of the government, and the government tries to um, first of all to nominate the head of the Shin Bet that Netanyahu wanted, and to fire the legal advisor after many months and years of them wanting it. And we see that I spoke about it a few months ago, that Netanyahu will feel much stronger, that he now has one after another. He got rid of all the opposition to him in the army, in the Shin Bet, in the legal system, and he does it one after another, and he succeeds. It takes time, but he succeeds. That's the situation so far. I don't remember, Ahnaf, when we started exactly, but I think that I finished my part in the beginning, so I am open, please, to questions.
All right. Many thanks, Alex. Now, just a few days ago, the IDF conducted some pretty major strikes on Houthi targets. Does Iran have any will or capacity, for that matter, to retaliate and strike back at Israel for this?
It's very interesting. If you see, I even didn't touch it so much because we don't really understand what was the outcome of these attacks. We didn't see any publications, major publications, like it was in the previous attack, like we saw, the attacks on the oil facilities and the ports. This time we just understood that it was some severe attack, but we didn't see the outcome. But we didn't see any reaction from Iran. So we definitely see how weak the axis of resistance became in Iran itself. And Israel, after all, today controls the skies and controls the situation, and definitely uh, uh, I don't know if we can say wins, because it matter of goals. I don't think that we won because we did destroy the nuclear program of Iran. And by the way, I question, even if we destroy it, what can happen then? They can go, faster to the next bomb, and that can be their lesson. So without dismantling the regime, I'm not sure that we can really win. But Israel definitely controls the skies and damages and destroys every capability at the moment to attack Israel, and we see that as no reaction from Iran and the Houthi. The Houthis didn't really attack Israel after this strike as well.
So, on that note, how long can we expect the Israeli Air Force to maintain its control over the skies of Iran? Is it just is it indefinitely, or is there a certain goal in mind with regards to monitoring what Iran is building?
It's a very good question. We see already information about Iran, buying buying new weapon, buying planes from China, and we already see that China is interested, to, I don't know if the right word is rebuild, because I don't think that there is something to rebuild because the army and the RGC were weak, but definitely to build their capabilities. And I think that everybody understands that, Iran, we know Iran. Iran is, very old, very determined and patient nation, and they will not give up easily. I just want to remind you that Iran-Iraq war was 8 years. So by this regime. So I'm sure that they will, they will take time to fight, and Israel will have to um, combat this, fight this war and this enemy, I think, for more times and more years until, again, we all, and I'm not afraid to say that. I don't think that we should be, afraid of saying that, yes, our goal is to dismantle this regime. And I think that Europe and United States should take this challenge and also not to be ashamed of it. This is, the biggest terror regime and exporter in the world. And, as nobody was ashamed of, fighting and winning Hitler, I think that's what we should do. And we should fight for dismantling this regime and not letting them, not giving them stage as it was done just now by, Tucker Carlson. I think that's a huge mistake, huge mistake. And it's not about journalism. It's just, I don't want to add everything that was already said about this interview. I just saw it yesterday. Today, sorry, in the morning. I was just shocked. I was just shocked by this stage that he got, and the lies, how can you just watch it and not to understand that he's just lying, as always. We must dismantle this regime and end this real occupation of the Middle East by the Iranian regime of the Islamic Republic.
Now, it seems like there's kind of been a sort of there used to be a window at the close of this 12-day war where it seemed more and more likely that we would see the fall of the Islamic Republic in Iran. It's kind of being said that the longer this goes on without anything meaningful from inside Iran, that window seems to be closing. Do you fear that this window is coming to a close?
The right answer that I don't know. We see that, the regime really is very, very brutal now to fight every uprising because they understand that they are at the weakest point, as you mentioned. Uh, but these things take time. I don't believe that it will happen immediately. But I think that everybody understood. I hope that everybody understood the inside and the outside opposition and all the players that they are weak. They are weak, and if now, uh, I don't know when we again get this opportunity. So that's why I'm saying that the United States and Europe must now change this regime, and also I believe truly that we can negotiate the change of regime with the supporters of Iran, with Russia and China, because Russians and Chinese interests in Iran are pragmatic and instrumental. It's not ideological partnership. Chinese need their oil, and Russians need their, strategic partnership in economy and weapons and few other things. But it's all can be provided for Russia if needed, and definitely for China. And if you give them a substitute, they will take it. And Russians know what Iran is. They have the competition with Iran in Caucasus for hundreds of years. They don't need Iran to be strong. And we saw the reactions of Putin when he was asked by Iranians to help. He did nothing. He just did nothing. And by the way, I wrote an article in the end of October after the Israeli strike in October, and I said that the biggest success of Israeli strike was the fact that it isolated Iran and showed that nobody will fight for it and really support it. And now we see that happening. So I'm sure that we can negotiate with China and Russia a change of regime and do it without hurting them, or maybe hurting them if needed. But we must do it now. We must do it now.
All right, thank you. Now, I'll turn to some questions from the audience here. Carla would like to ask. She starts, I don't understand this deal. Just back off for 2 months so they can simply regroup? If they really wanted a deal, give back our hostages and leave us in peace. Is this all just for the court of world opinion?
No, it's not for the world opinion. No. There is your question is right. But first of all, very unfortunate, and I touched this in my first part. Unfortunately, we see that we're stuck in Gaza, and we don't succeed to beat them to an extent that we will just get the hostages. Now, they will never give up the hostages. That's what keeps them alive, as I told you, because we are not able to destroy the tunnels because we are afraid that we have our people in the tunnels. So you can do nothing, you cannot put gas in it, okay, because you're afraid that you will kill your people, and you will not be able, even if they're dead, you still want to bring them back. You see, we're Jews, we value life. We value life, and we value our people. We are small people, and we cannot not to care to each one of us, because if we will not feel united, we will not be able to fight together. So this value of bringing the hostages is very important, but the price is also very important. And that's exactly what divides Israelis on this understanding what will be the price. I don't think that there is anyone who doesn't want the hostages back, that the price, and if we stop the war and kill Hamas, and destroy it, your question is very correct. So at least, it's not a good deal. We don't choose here between good and bad. We choose here between bad and much worse. That's the reality. Very, very, very unfortunately, we are unable to do something else. We cannot find them and take them and then, do whatever we want and destroy the tunnels. Unfortunately, that's reality. So we fight to not, Netanyahu fights not to end the war, but Israeli society is tired of this war, and it wants the people back. I don't think it's because of international pressure, even though I must tell you that Israel pays a heavy price for this war, and I'm sure that many people says it's time to to cut the losses and and to get back to the normal business with the world. It's also a big prize, but the dilemma is very hard.
Alrighty, well, thank you. Going to another question from the audience. Dan would like to ask, why can't Israel use drone tanks and avoid the huge casualties that the IDF faces?
Israel does everything possible to avoid casualties, and I ask you all not to believe to all the lies of so-called Gaza health, whatever ministry as they call themselves. It's all Hamas, and they lie, and they kill their own people, and they do everything that these people will die, and they do everything to lie to the world about the death. We call it Hollywood, right? Because we know how they lie. And believe me, if you go and check, you will find that what Israel does is the the best job ever to avoid casualties as possible if you compare it to any other war. But unfortunately, Saudis can kill, Americans can kill, Brits can kill, everybody can kill. But when it comes to wars of Israelis, they are the eyes are always on them, and we cannot, fight for our life, even though we, I think, are most more than any other in risk, and we're very small. Just open the map and look at it very, very, very carefully. Just understand. So we do everything to minimize the casualties, but please know, you want less casualties? Don't fire, don't kill, and don't mess with Jews. You will mess with Jews, you will have casualties. As simple as that, okay? You don't want to die? Don't try to kill Jews. That's all.
Thank you very much. Now, there's another question here. It's quite long, so bear with me. It's from Sarah, who asks, is it realistic to totally destroy Hamas? I don't think so. If so, Israel could have done that by now. Jihadists don't give up even after massive damage to their infrastructure. Israel has to get those poor hostages out of there and will always have to watch its borders closely because Hamas will never just slink away. And keeping those poor hostages in hell for another 642 days can't be an option.
I'll tell you my opinion. Tell me, in 43, after 2 years of war with Hitler, why nobody said, well, if we couldn't do that by now, let's stop and give up, right? Who told you that wars can be or should be fast? Who told you that jihadists are impossible to destroy? As Daniel Pipes says, are there more supermen than Nazis? Why I mean, the West with the Soviet Union, why we could destroy Nazis, but we cannot destroy what? This small terror organization? We can. It's about spirit, it's about time, and it's about weaponry, and it's primarily about spirit. And I don't buy this saying that if you couldn't do that by now, you cannot do that. No. And if we need to fight more, we will fight more. I understand that people are tired. I understand that we will lose people. We should do everything not to lose them. Maybe we should stop now and get back to it later. But I don't buy the saying that says that wars must be fast. Otherwise, we couldn't have, won the war on Nazis, and we should stop in 43 because, we didn't do it in 2 years, right?
All right, thank you. Now, there's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of movement about the normalization between Israel and Saudi and what that would entail in terms of leadership of the Palestinian territories. Can you comment on what we can expect from this, how likely it is, and if so, what the mood among Israelis would be among this normalization?
I think it's about time. As I said before, I think that Israelis understand that it's about time. I think that now Saudis just cannot do that because of the war in Gaza and because their public opinion about that. But if there is an interest of Saudi Arabia and its leadership, definitely. And its economic interests, to be part of the India Middle East Europe corridor, and if it's understanding that Israel is the brave and the capable military and economic power in the region, and Israel showed that during the last few weeks, that we're not only speaking, that we don't only speak, that we act. I'm sure that it's only a matter of time with Syria, with Lebanon, with Saudis, with Oman, and with all the Arab world. And I'm sure that someday, with another regime, Iran will be back to be a best friend of Israel, exactly as it was before 79, and exactly as we know that people of Iran are very pro-Israel and they want to be our friends. It will all happen. Just keep the spirit. We came back after 2,000 years. We are the internal people. Guys, we are the internal people. We have time. If it takes time to win more than we thought, so it will take time.
All right. Well, many thanks, Alex. I'm afraid we are unfortunately at the end of our podcast this week. I want to thank you again for taking the time to update us and to share your insights.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Now, for our viewers and listeners, please be on the lookout in your email inboxes over the weekend for next week's podcast offerings. We will have a very special guest on sometime next week, so keep an eye out for that. As always, we thank you for your participation, for your viewership. We hope you enjoyed this week's stream, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you. All right.